Good morning. This is Introduction to Algebra for Wednesday. We're looking at lesson 117 today. Before we get to that though, let's look at some review, okay? What does complementary angle mean? A complementary angle is when two angles are added together and they equal 90 degrees. If you have supplementary angles, the two angles that are added together equal 180 degrees. A protractor. A protractor is simply the tool that we use to measure an angle. Next, an acute angle. Acute angles are angles that are less than 90 degrees when measured. Obtuse angles. Obtuse angles are angles that are more than 90 degrees when we measure them. A straight angle. A straight angle equals exactly 180 degrees when measured. A right angle. A right angle measures exactly 90 degrees when measured. We can always indicate a right angle by doing what? Drawing a little box in the corner. Because remember, a right angle forms a perfect corner. Very important in geometry. Adjacent angles. Adjacent angles have the same vertex and must share one side. What's the vertex? That's the point where it starts. So if I have, here's a ray and here's an angle, okay? Two rays that share the same vertex form a ray. But in order for them to be two adjacent angles, I'm going to need a third ray. They all now share the same vertex. This angle and this angle are adjacent though because they share this side. They have to have one side the same in order to be adjacent angles. We also said there were 4 types of triangles yesterday. We said that the first type, we know it because it has a right angle in it, so we call it a right triangle. Then we said there are some triangles where two sides of the triangles are congruent. The word congruent means exactly the same. If two sides are congruent, we have a what kind of triangle? An isosceles triangle. If no sides of the triangle are congruent, then our triangle is a scalene triangle. Nothing is the same. If all 3 sides are the same, then we have an equilateral triangle. Now today we're going to kind of change gears just a little bit, and we're going to talk about Roman numerals. Now we've already talked about them to some degree. We've talked about the fact that the Roman numeral I represents 1. We said that a V represents 5. An X represents 10. That an L represents 50. That's really as far as we have gone so far, okay? Those are the ones that you should already know them, okay? Now let's look at the next one, the Roman numeral letter C. In Roman numerals, the letter C represents 100. The letter D represents 500. And the letter M equals 1,000. Now, we still have those 2 rules. You cannot put more than 3 of any one letter together. Also, if you put a smaller Roman numeral value in front of a larger one, you subtract. If you put a smaller value after a larger one, you add. With those things in mind, let's look at this. If I have a D, which represents 500, then I have a C, which represents 100. I have a smaller number after my larger number, so I'm going to add. So let's do that. We have 500, 600, 700. So let's write our 7. Now, I have an L, which is 50, and I have an X, which is 10. Am I going to add or subtract? I'm going to add because the 10 comes after. So I have 50, 60, then I have the V, which is a 5. So that means that DCCLXV equals 765. Look at the next one. I have an M followed by a C, which means it's a smaller number, okay? So, but then I see that I have another M. What does that tell you? Well, it means that the first M is going to stand on its own. So it's going to be 1,000. Now, look at the small one and the one right after it. So CM, that is 100 less than 1,000. So that is 900. Now I have an X and an L. X is smaller than L, so that is 10 less than 50. So it is going to be a 40, okay? Then we have VII. We can add all those together, and that is 7. So our answer is 1,947. Let's look at the next one. We have the number 888, okay? So the first thing we have to do is make 800. How will you make 800? Well, I can't subtract and get 800. I'm going to need to add. So I'm going to take the 500 to start with. Can I put 3 C's? Yes, because the most you can put together are 3 of the same thing. So I'm going to put D, C, C, C. Okay? Now I have 80. How do I get 80? What's the closest thing to 80? That's going to be the 50. Because if I use 100, I can only subtract 10, right? So that doesn't help me. That only gets me 90 because I can only subtract 1 digit or 1 Roman numeral. Okay? So I'm going to put 50, for that's the L. But I need 80, so I'm going to pay 50. 60 is 1 X. 70 is 2 X's. 80 is 3 X's. Then I have 8. So I'm going to put my V, which is my 5. Roman numeral 1, 1, and 1, or 3 I's, gets me 8. So now I have D, C, 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 L, X, 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 V, I, equals 888. Look at the next one in your book. It says the number 1,990. Well, how do I write the 1,000? With an M. Okay? How do I write 900? 100 less than 1,000, right? So I'm going to write CM. Because C is 100. It's in front of the M, so that means 100 less than 1,000. That gives me 900. Now I need 90. How do I write 90? Well, I'm going to say 10 less than 100. So I'm going to say X, and then I'm going to write a C. Okay? This last one, 400,000. It is not in your book. It's one that I just need to teach you. First, let's only look at the part we know how to do, and that's the 400. How do I write 400? I can't write 4 C's because I can only write 3, right? So I have to subtract. I'm going to take 500 and a C, which is 100. I'm going to say 100 less than 500, so I'm going to write CD. So that's 400. We are going to write this line, and this line is going to go directly above it. We're going to cover both of those, okay, with a line. That line is called a vinculum, and it simply means take this number and multiply it by 1,000. So what I wrote was 400. This line says multiply it by 1,000, so now I have 400,000, okay? You will have some Roman numerals on your test this week, so please make sure that you study this chart. You need to know it, okay? Let's look very quickly at your homework on page 332. If there's any of these that you're having trouble with, I need you to text me the number. The comments are turned off by YouTube because these are made for students and they, across the board, won't allow us to accept comments anymore. So that was our new policy a couple weeks ago. So if you have a question about one, I need you to text it to me so that I can address it in our next video. Everything you see on lesson 117 is very similar to your test. Please, 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 you are almost finished with your test in this class. You need a good grade, okay? Everybody needs to make a really good grade because you're almost out of grading factors, okay? All right, have a good day, guys.